Welcome back. The safety and well-being of women are being violated on a daily basis as wives and partners are subjected to abuse and even murder at the hands of their loved ones. The hate crimes against women seem to be on the increase in a society that should pride itself on the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. The sad and shocking reality is that in the majority of cases, the crimes, as we've said, are perpetrated by people close to the victims or known to the victims. And to tell us more is Mr. Bafana Khumalo, who's Director of Strategic Partnerships at Sonke Gender Justice. And this is definitely a scourge, something we should all be concerned with and concerned about. And I'm wondering if it's escalating or it's because there's more awareness now, there are more reports, but otherwise the phenomenon has always been with us. Yeah,
I think the phenomenon has been with us, but we do in the sector recognize that there seems to be a scourge. Yeah. It's definitely increasing.
And what could be the reason for that? Because, you know, one would have thought, given a value system and a particular history, that something like this, and of course I've referred to the Constitution and the media and the talk and the marches and the existence of organizations such as yours, that people would have been conscientized and aware that abuse, murder, and all of those things are a complete no-no, and that's not the way to conduct our relationships and our lives.
It's a complex matter. I think it's a myriad of reasons why it's happening. But chief is lack of leadership. We have a challenge in South Africa. I mean, just in the past month, over 60 women have been killed.
Over the past month?
Over just the past month by their partners.
Yes.
So in other words, killed by people that know them, people that are close to them, people that they have relationships with. Now, in any country, that is a state of emergency. Now, why I'm calling the issue of lack of leadership, we have political leaders being killed in Natal. We've had the president calling all the security ministers to come to the party, come up with a plan, an intervention plan. Have we had the same sentiment about the killing of women? No. Now that for me is part of the problem, because as long as perpetrators think it's okay to do this because you can get away with it, nobody seems to care, nobody is concerned, we're going to continue to have these cases in our society.
It's 60 women have been killed this past month. And if you add instances of abuse, I suppose
the numbers are just overwhelming. They are overwhelming.
But have there been any successful prosecutions?
There has been successful prosecution. I mean, we do have cases where the courts now are much more stronger and stringent, giving people very long sentences. So at one point, we are at least resolving the issue of accountability in terms of the court system. But we still have challenges with the criminal justice system. Many of the cases, by the way, that end up in court are just a mere fraction of the cases that actually are out there. Many of the cases are never reported because people have lost confidence in the police. I mean, we hear every day about women who are told at the police station, go back and resolve this with your partner.
Really?
Call your family. The case of the woman who was shot in Soweto just a week ago, I mean, she left her home with the perpetrator because the situation could not be resolved. She's been to the police station on a numerous occasions. She's got a protection order. The MEC is on record to say the matter was reported to her 4 months ago. And the MEC confided that actually the police did not do what they should have done. Otherwise, this woman would not have died. Now, this man followed her from where she was working to even find out where she was now staying in Soweto, pulled her out before she got into a taxi and shot her. Now, that's a failure of the system. Why is it that when this case was reported 4 months ago, as the MEC was saying, the police did not do anything about it?
And I'd like to believe, and also from your experience as the Sonke Gender Organization, that in many, many instances, overwhelming majority of them, the victims would have gone to the police. And obtained the protection orders. So in other words, there are always indications that something terrible
Some steps have been taken
is likely to happen, because the victim would have reported anyway. And they are let down by the system.
They are let down by the system horribly. And this is where I call for leadership. You know, Tim, you would know that as civil society, Sonke is part of a consortium of organizations that are calling for the Stop Gender-Based Violence. We have called for the National Strategic Plan because we are saying unless we have a clear plan as a country that says for those that are in the criminal justice system, how do we hold them accountable when things are not working? Where do we need to strengthen in terms of the legal framework? We know that we've got policies. We don't need more laws. What we need is implementation. You know, the failures of the system, the case of the young woman who died in Mamelodi, for instance, it's unrelated to violence, but it's in a sense an indicator of how police are not being responsive. When the parents go and report and say a child has been lost, what do the police do? No, come in 24 hours. This is a child that has an illness, mental illness that requires urgent response. But the standing orders say when a child is facing a crisis and you report, the police must react immediately. But there in Mamelodi, they did not.
They chose
has there been any accountability?
No.
I can assure you as we're sitting here, nothing has happened. Now, this is symptomatic of a bigger problem that we're dealing with.
These crimes against women are referred to as hate crimes, correctly so, right? What do you think is going on in our society for us to have so much hate
crimes
taking place, or crimes being committed against women, you think? Because, as we've said, invariably they will be committed by people known to the victim, or worse of all, by someone they are close to, they have an intimate relationship with.
It's patriarchy, Pratim, at the center of this, and abuse of power. We still live in a society where there are men who believe that women belong to them, that they can make demands, women have no right to say no. Now, in many of these instances, it's where the relationship has not worked and the woman says, no, let's rather, cut ties because this thing is not working. Men don't accept that. So they prefer rather, I will kill you and kill myself and kill the children because it's not acceptable that as a man, you can leave me as a woman. Now, we need interventions that begin to say, how do we change the narrative about what it means to be a man? This notion that manhood is about always showing power, exerting force to get what you want, is part of the problem that we have in this society.
But now, Bafana, I mean, you run campaigns, your organization, and other people were raised to understand that you don't do that to women or to anybody for that matter. And that's your contribution to reducing levels of violence in our society if you want to live in a peaceful community and a peaceful society. So, earlier we said that this seems to be escalating, meaning that as much as it happened in the past, it was not as out of hand as it appears to be now. So what could be then the key driver of this? And is there any way of reversing this thing?
Part of it, of course, is that we have a breakdown of family structures. In the olden days, you knew who your neighbor was, you knew who the children were. When you saw a child doing something wrong in the streets, you could call them to order. Today, you can no longer do that. We have rapid urbanization. There are huge economic challenges that people are facing. People are facing all sorts of stress levels in the urban environment. So who cares about what happens to the next person? We are all concerned about ourselves, And so even when I hear a woman crying, in the olden days, people will come out of their homes to intervene. Today, people don't intervene. People ask questions, why is she out at night? They never say the same if a man is attacked at night and, everybody will remark that this area has got lots of criminals, but not with women. Now, part of it is how we no longer have systems where when people are facing challenges in relationships, they can go with the family, sit down and have a conversation so that you have people that can, help resolve those matters. People are now living the way they want to live. We all live in an area, as they say, so I can do anything that I can because I'm not accountable to anybody. So we do need to re-invoke, I think, some of the values that we have lost in our society about Ubuntu. What does it mean to be Umuntu in a context of a South Africa of today?
Here's another question. You've mentioned the institutional problems, the leadership issue, that we need leadership, that we have to promote the values of Ubuntu, and a whole number of things, that communities should also be proactive. What advice do you give potential victims, right? Because you alluded to it earlier on. If people seek protection orders against this potential perpetrators, ultimately it ends up as a tragedy, which now you say only last month 60 lives lost in 1 month. So what do you do?
I think
you're in such a relationship?
We need to raise the flag in the country. I think this is a national matter. I really hope that the presidency will intervene in this instance so that we really have interventions at the highest level in office in the country. Because indeed, if women go to police and can't find help, what does that mean?
But do you have any particular advice to a potential victim? Are there any particular red flags to look out for?
There are red flags, but Tim, part of the challenge, of course, is that when people are in a relationship, it's very complicated. People get violated, and tomorrow the partner brings roses, promises you to buy this, promises I'll never do it again. I always advise women to say, if a partner raises their voice to you, those are red flags. It's going to start with a voice being raised. It's going to end up with him pushing you. It's going to graduate into a slap, and it's going to be open violence. So never assume that, no, he was just angry, he was just stressed. Your partner, if indeed they say they want to change, then they must be willing to come forward and say, I'm going to go for counseling. I'm going to seek help. I'm going to ensure that I deal with issues of anger or whatever it is that forces me to do this kind of, to behave in this particular way. If people are not committed to do that, then that partner must really be keen to relook at that relationship, whether is it worth it to remain in that relationship. It's sad that women die in an attempt where they think, no, he will change. I know him.
But a brief response from you. I've heard very brief response from you that sometimes partners get killed for precisely the point of saying they want to leave the relationship. And the best way to keep alive is to stay in the relationship.
That's the challenge that we're having. That's where we need now the criminal justice system to do its job. So that when somebody comes forward and say, I'm facing this challenge, it must never be a situation where the police say, no, go and talk about it, go and bring the family, because Bafana, indeed women have died in the hands of their partners in this
Firstly, we appreciate the work that you do, and thanks for being with us here. And we're raising this matter so that as communities we pay attention to this, and as a potential victim and a potential perpetrator for that matter, please introspect and think about what you are about to do, violating another human being. It's a complete no-no in South Africa, not only because of the Constitution, but because of who we are and the value system that defines a South African. Mr. Bafana Khumalo is Director of Strategic Partnerships at Sonke Gender Justice. That's all we had for you tonight. Good night to you.